Just minutes before Kirk Ferentz took the stage at Big Ten Media Days in Indianapolis, Iowa football released its pre-camp depth chart, which is part of the 2024 record book, the Digital Media Guide, officially released. Some takeaways and I'm sure some overreaction to the names and the order of said names in just a second. But first, I want to thank our sponsor, Under the Kitchen, Randy Engel, doing great work down in Mitchellville. Check out all the artwork and the prints, the signed prints you can purchase for yourself or as a gift. Check it all out. Visit Under the Kitchen on Facebook or visit underthekitchen.square.site. That's underthekitchen.square.site. So yes, reaction to the first depth chart of the fall. Technically, this is the summer depth chart, the pre-camp depth chart. Camp starts next Wednesday. I'm recording this on Thursday, July 25th. Big Ten Media Days is wrapping up. And so Iowa will be in pads and hitting it hard here in less than a week. So let's take a look at the depth chart that was released on Wednesday. We start at the top with wide receiver. Now, we'll run through wide receiver because it's the first one listed. We're going to run through every wide receiver position. As you can see, 3 wide receiver spots listed. But the caveat here, and it's written up there at the top, I saw somebody comment on this on Twitter. Wow, Iowa's got 3 receivers listed, 3 starting receivers listed. Well, read the small, fine print. 12 positions are listed. Starting 11 will depend on various formations and personnel groups. So we should be able to understand that based on the number of positions listed here. But at wide receiver, you've got a bit of a surprise right out of the gates. 2 second-year players listed at that first wide receiver spot. Jarrett Bowie, the Jesuit high school graduate out of Tampa, Florida. We spoke with him prior to his arrival to Iowa. Very nice young man, and he's really come of age, according to Kirk Ferentz. The coaching staff really likes this young man. He got some playing time late in the season in 2023. He will be backed up, at least to start camp, by Dayton Howard, the 6'4", 6'5" Kansas City native who had no other football offers, not D1, not D2, nothing coming out of high school. He is listed as a redshirt freshman, is listed as your number 2 behind Jarrett Bowie. At the other 2 wide receiver spots, you've got a familiar face, Seth Anderson, who transferred in a year ago from Charleston Southern. He has battled injuries during the spring. That, I think, is seriously, that starting role for Seth Anderson is very much in question, depending on health and the maturation of some guys around him. Caden Weegen's a name you're going to recognize, and you better be familiar with. I see him getting a lot of time on special teams with either kick returns, punt returns, or both. And then you look at the other wide receiver spot, Caleb Brown. Kirk Ferentz confirmed this week he will miss 1 game due to the OWI charge. And right now, his backup is listed as a former running back. Yes, former running back. I think it's safe to say they're going to run Terrell Washington in the backfield at times, but he has made the switch over to John Budmeyer's wide receiver room. He is backing up Caleb Brown. So no Jacob Gill listed here. Remember, Jacob Gill is the Northwestern transfer. He has not technically been in an Iowa uniform on the football field yet this year. So give him a couple of weeks to acclimate. I expect him to play, and frankly, I expect him to start, but it sounds like there's more healthy competition there than maybe we initially thought. I took some notes. I'll be kind of going over my overarching takeaways from Big Ten Media Days tomorrow during a video. But those are your guys, your top 6, according to the depth chart, and Jacob Gill not listed, I think, again, basically because he hasn't been in an Iowa uniform, hasn't done anything in practice technically. Now, during the summer, there are player-led practices, skills and drills, all that, but nothing official. And so we'll have to wait until fall camp to see where Jacob Gill ends up on the depth chart, if he ends up on the depth chart. Tight end is a position of strength, as always. Kirk Ferentz was very, very complimentary of Luke Lachey and Addison Estringa. Those are your top 2 guys. Expect Johnny Pascuzzi to also figure into the mix, and maybe a young guy like a Gavin Hoffman, who enrolled early this past spring. Offensive line, we're going to talk about the senior experience. I mean, this is an old group up front when you look at the names up here. Mason Richmond starting with a 3rd-year guy and Jack Dotzler backing him up. Bo Stevens, Cade Piper just won the Solon hay bale toss. He'll back up Bo Stevens to start with. Logan Jones, Tyler Ellsbury, 2 very seasoned veterans. Connor Colby, Nick DeYoung, a couple of more very seasoned guys. And then at right tackle, Jennings Dunker, Trevor Lauk listed as his backup, but I would guess Nick DeYoung would swing out there. Again, I'm going to keep saying this throughout this video. This is just pre-camp. Some of this Kirk Ferentz probably don't even care about who's listed where, but everybody likes to overreact to depth charts to start fall camp. Quarterback, yes, the most important position on the football field and the one everybody wonders about year in and year out. Rightfully so. Cade McNamara is your starter. And a lot of people thought Brendan Sullivan would be listed as his backup, but he has never been in an Iowa uniform on the football field yet. So why would he be listed ahead of Marco Lainez? We'll look to see what kind of a battle we get in fall camp. But we've got Marco as the 2 guy, Brendan Sullivan as your 3. We're going to see less and less fullback. I really believe that. I think Hayden Large has got a chance to play some at tight end. I think Eli Miller will play primarily at fullback, but right now they've got Hayden Large listed as the starting fullback. We swing over to defense. Deontay Craig, Max Llewellyn, a couple of experienced guys on the edge. The other end spot, you've got Brian Allen, Ethan Herkett. So basically 4 guys I think that Kirk Ferentz probably trusts. Minimum of 3. Brian Allen does not have as much game experience, but those 3 guys I think Kirk Ferentz, Phil Parker, and company really like. And then some young talent like Kenneth Merriweather, like Caden Crawford, who really has not seen any time on the football field during meaningful snaps. How about the interior? You've got Aaron Graves and Y.A. Black, Jeremiah Pittman. So you've probably got 3 guys you're real comfortable with on the inside. But here's some guys we haven't heard a lot about. Will Hubert, Luke Gaffney, Jeff Bowie. Jeff Bowie, the Eastern Iowa native, is finally healthy. That is so good to hear for an upperclassman in Jeff Bowie. And so they've got to develop some depth there on the inside of that defensive line. Sebastian Castor, a lot of people are calling him the best nickel in all of the country. He's listed as your starting cash. John Nestor as the backup. But how about we swing down to cornerback? Because look at this. John Nestor listed ahead of more experienced Deshaun Lee, a more experienced TJ Hall, the second-year Chicago native, John Nestor, listed as your starting cornerback. TJ Hall backing him up. Of course, the other spot opposite Nestor, another Chicago cornerback, Jamari Harris, listed as the starter in front of Deshaun Lee. Safety is Xavier Wampa, Cohen Intringer, who's coming off a surgery, Quinn Schulte, Zach Lutmer, and what am I missing? Oh, of course, linebacker. Iowa's strength on this entire football team. Their strongest position linebacker led by Jay Higgins, Nick Jackson, and then a lot of young talent like Jaden Harrell and Carson Shire. We look at special teams, Drew Stevens, Trip Woody. Sounds like Trip has struggled during summer at times, but he's come on of late. Drew Stevens, we'll see. He was obviously very good during the first portion of the season, struggled as the year went on. Some of that might have been kick protection, but it is what it is. Reese Dakin, the Australia native, he is your starting punter. Ty Nissen will back him up. Luke Elkin is returning as Iowa's long snapper, and they've got a backup long snapper in Ike Speltz. So those are your guys. Overall takeaways, well, I kind of gave some as I was running through that list. But first of all, the bottom line is take it all with a grain of salt. Iowa's not real deep at defensive line. I know they've listed a bunch of guys on the interior of that line. In fact, they listed 3 guys at right tackle and 3 guys at left tackle. I don't expect them to go. They're not going to go anywhere close to 12 deep. All right. So we understand that. They never go 12 deep. But they've had the luxury of going 8 or 9 deep at times. I don't see them doing that unless somebody really comes of age this August. They'd like to get to 6 or 7, I would think. Kelvin Bell, Phil Parker done a nice job at that position. At quarterback, again, don't read into the Brendan Sullivan thing. I expect him to be the backup and compete with Cade. Kirk clearly, based on what he said this week, Kirk clearly favors Cade in that battle based on body of work at Michigan over what Brendan Sullivan has put together at Northwestern, although it's more than anything Iowa's had in recent time. And then as far as receiver, it sounds like Kirk is a little bit more confident with that depth, although it's very young. And the big thing that stood out for me at running back, that's the one position I didn't mean to skip over. Running back, LaShawn Williams, Caleb Johnson, Kamari Moulton, no Jazz Patterson listed. We know Terrell Washington's going to play a lot of receiver, but no Jazz Patterson listed. That would have been a question I would have asked Kirk Ferentz this week. We'll get a chance to talk to Kirk at Iowa Media Day in a few weeks. But why no Jazz Patterson? They have no problem listing 3 guys at other positions. Well, they listed 3 guys at running back. Kamari Moulton appears to be the 3rd guy. So we'll wait and see. But those are my takeaways from the depth chart and my final takeaways from Big Ten Media Days coming out tomorrow. Stay tuned. I'm Corey Bratta from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Hawkeye coverage around the clock and leading up to kickoff on August 31st.